Here we are for part two of the lecture. I'll make sure that I set my timer here so I don't go over. But I think it's very sobering to consider that someday someone is going to come and sit in our living room with our family, and they are going to ask questions about you and me. Some of those questions that I asked in the first half of the lecture. Who are we? What defined us? And what will our family's answers be, and how will they respond about us? And funerals are times where we're reminded of what really matters. And sometimes people will challenge us as a pastor and say of their loved one, well, they weren't really a very nice person, or well, they're in hell. Be sure to give it to the people out there so that they know what's coming, and perhaps we don't that doesn't happen as much more recently, but I certainly had that happen along the way, and some people will press us, oh pastor, this is a great opportunity for evangelism. And it is in the sense of evangelism as good news, that we went to good news people with the beauty and the love and the compassion of Christ, that we want to give as compelling a vision of the gospel as we possibly can, because people are hostages at that time, and it really is a wonderful opportunity to good news people, because there will be people there who don't ever go to church, who are agnostic or atheists, but perhaps we can't convince them, but perhaps we can maybe move the goalposts a little bit for them, or help them to reconsider, to think that that there really is a core of beauty and love and compassion and hope that lies at the heart of the gospel. And they may think, well, I can't affirm it, but at least that pastor believes it, and they are fleshing that out in their sermon. So let's talk a little bit about companioning grief. And here, I think our temptation, especially early on in ministry, is to feel like we have to fix people's grief, when really what we're doing is walking alongside of them. That we are seeking to be present to them, to just give them permission to experience whatever it is that they're experiencing. And we in the U.S. are not very good at grieving or lamenting, and we want people to quit being sad as soon as possible. And so, and a very real example of this is, say, like if we have somebody in our office, or and you can just watch this in meetings or churches. I see this all the time. But if somebody's telling something that's painful for them, what does somebody do? They grab a box of Kleenexes, of tissues, and what does that do? It shuts down the grieving process, and it's better to allow people to feel their feelings, to not turn the spigot off, but allow them to to plumb their feelings, and certainly well, I was just going to say, if they're uncontrollably sobbing, but again, if they need to do that, that is perfectly fine. We're just there. We're silent. We don't need to offer platitudes. Oh well, at least they're not suffering anymore. Or things like that. And it's also helpful to help people be angry at God, and that you could say, it sounds like you're angry at God. Tell me what you're feeling. And just to normalize, anger is okay. How did you know that David was often angry with God in the Psalms? In fact, there's more of those angry lament Psalms, than there are any other Psalms in the book of Psalms. So again, can just kind of help normalize it, And I just find that if we can help people, give them permission to feel what they're feeling, we can take a lot of the toxicity, the poison, that they may be feeling. And just the sacramental nature of the pastoral visit, that you really are a priest, that you are representing God during this visit, that people, you've heard it said, maybe the only Bible, they ever read. You are representing God. You are Jesus to these people, and so it's really important, that we be as present and comforting and as loving and compassionate as Christ was. Grief shared is grief diminished. So the more people can share, the less painful their grief will be. Just some things to consider that I never knew. I had never heard about till I read some of Thomas Lynch's books, and I have a list of those at the end of the lecture. But there's no reason to rush to complete the funeral services, especially with cremation. You can wait 5 days or 30 days or 6 months or a year for a memorial service. You have to be able to gather people together just for people to get some distance and reflect upon, what do they want to do with the ashes? Do they want to intern them? Do they want to spread them? Whatever it may be. And it's also really important for people to see the body. And in the modern funeral industrial complex, it's attempted to kind of sanitize and make things as easy as possible. They fix the body up, they put makeup on it. There's a really good series that was out on HBO like 15 years or so ago. It's called 6 Feet Under. It's a story of a family of undertakers and what they, go through. And it's funny, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's R-rated, because sometimes there's some drugs in it. But I really learned a lot about the funeral industry and what it is to be a mortician from them. Sometimes mementos are really important. Could be pictures, could be special things that said something about the deceased. One time I heard about a guy who loved to golf, and so his family brought in his golf cart into the service and put it right alongside his casket. And then at the end of the service, the family gave out golf balls in memory of the deceased and said, take the ball to your favorite course, hit it on your favorite hole in memory of Danny. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever seen separate family rooms. Again, just trying to protect people from grief, the grieving of the families. They had a little separate room to the side of the main meeting area, in a funeral home, and they would pull like a shade, a curtain, and families would be shielded from other family and friends who were there to comfort them. And thank God, I haven't seen one of these in quite a while, but if you ever see them or you notice a little room off to the side of a funeral home, that's what it once was. Testimonies are always really helpful, but sometimes I found it really helpful to get at least a couple of those lined up ahead of time. Sometimes you have to be prepared for somebody who maybe kind of goes on and on, so you kind of have to jump in and guide people. Again, just don't be uncomfortable with silence. Don't give out cliches. God only plucks his most beautiful flowers for his bouquets in heaven, or at least they're not suffering anymore, because our temptation will be to say something, but silence is often better than just saying the wrong thing. The need for personal involvement is crucial. I heard about a father who carried the casket of his young daughter in and out of the church to the gravesite. The father dug the entire grave. Father and mother shoveled the dirt into the grave. And then at the end of the service, all the family members came and helped to fill it in. And you can do things like this. You just have to ask to be able to know that this is possible. But you can do the ashes to ashes and dust to dust. You can help dig the hole. You can help fill it in, or you can let those that you're ministering to know that that's a possibility. In the old days, women cleaned and prepared the body while the men built the casket and dug the grave. There was something very physical and tangible, incarnational about that. And I think this necessarily was not a sexist thing, but it worked really well. The men could talk while they sawed and hammered the casket, and the physical activity of digging the grave was healing, and the women being able to care for the body. But again, certainly men, women, could do both of those things, and a lot of that is possible even in our day and age if we just simply ask. And each state's a little bit different in what they allow and how quickly bodies need to be interred, and that kind of thing. Well, let me finish up here. Here are some Thomas Lynch books: The Undertaking, The Depositions, Whence and Whither, The Good Funeral, which is really an excellent book, Death, Grief, and the Community of Care. So you can take a look at any of those on Amazon or wherever books are sold. But you can't go wrong with Thomas Lynch. He's a longtime mortician, excellent writer. Well, thanks for your time, and I hope and pray that was helpful.